Well, welcome everybody. I'm just going to share my screen and then we'll be able to jump into the story. There we go. Can everyone see my screen now?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Perfect. Well, thank you all for joining us and for your interest in the Maximize Your Impact as a best-selling author. And for those of you who don't know me, this is the main thing that I do in my business is creating multi-author books. This needs to get updated. I have got 3 more that I need to add to this, but it gives you kind of a snapshot of some of the books I've been in. At the moment, I am at 18, and this weekend I've got another book launching, so that will make me 19. So that is one of the main things that I do. And so basically for today, we're going to go over a few of the options or the values of being a published author. We'll discuss a bit about solo books versus anthologies or multi-author books, and then the opportunities that can be created by being a published author in books. And of course, then how can it add to personalizing your visibility? Because I would say that building your visibility and creating more impact are a few of the things that a lot of us are really focused on doing. And so just to kind of get started here, getting a bit of a feel for who you all are. Amanda, you were letting me know that you've now got your 2 books that you're in the middle of doing, multi-author books. So that's very cool. And Lisa, how about you? Have you been involved in any published books yet?
Yes, I self-published the science fiction thing on Amazon. I have a whole franchise that I need to work on, but yeah.
Okay, so science fiction is your thing?
One of my many things. Yeah, one of them.
All
Not
right.
the only one.
Perfect. How about you, Liz? Have you been in any books yet?
In any books,
Published?
it's hard to say. I have not published any books yet. I've written a book and it's been sitting on a shelf since 2009 that is fictionalized. But I did edit my business partner's book, so does that count for something?
Okay.
I mentioned as her editor.
Well, did it ever get published or just edited?
Oh yeah, yeah. So I don't know if that counts because I'm in it because I edited it. But
Right.
and then I was part of that book writing workshop with Dr. Eric Goodman, and so that's coming soon.
Perfect. Perfect. All right. Excellent. And all right. So a few of the values of being a published author. Of course, one of the wonderful things is that you're able to now put that on your profile. So whether it's on your social media, whether it's on your websites, I've found that this really does help you to stand out against your competition. I hate to use the word competition. I don't think that we really are competing, but when there is a situation where people are comparing a couple of different people, if you've got the title of author in your profile, it definitely does put you at a higher level. And I've even spoken to a few people who are, either run podcasts or organize summits and conferences, and they've said pretty much straight up that they look at authors first. And then if they don't fill all the spaces with people who are authors, then they will go to people who are not authors yet. So even from that point of view, there's value in becoming published. And of course, having author beside your name and then having best-selling author or international best-selling author, then of course just increases that credibility and value there as well. A few of the things that I love about participating in books is how you really can use it to build your global network. As these days with social media, it's so valuable to be able to take your published work and you can chop it up and use it, multitask with your different your assets that you've created from it. Especially with multi-author books, it's also a great way then, because with a multi-author book, you've got several people. I know the books that I do, I usually focus on 20 women from around the world. And so now when you think about it, you are now becoming involved in the networks of 20 other women around the world who you probably would have never had any contact with before. So even just from that point of view, as we were just mentioning too, it's just having that title on your profiles really does help to build authority and credibility with what you do. It gives you new opportunities for building visibility. And part of that is what you're doing with the assets from the book. Part of it is opportunities around getting invited to be on podcasts, getting invited to participate in summits and conferences and those sorts of things. So again, if you, with that author title, it now helps you walk into some of these other opportunities. And I often like to describe it as, what I found anyways, is quite often these are opportunities that you had never even noticed before. They're, things that have been obviously in your circle, but were not available to you until after you have hit this, being a published author. Then suddenly these people start coming out of the woodwork, inviting you to go places and do things and participate in things in ways that you hadn't even expected before. And here's what I was just mentioning around publishing opportunities. And I know, like I said, so far I've been in 18 books. 7 of those have been my projects where I have created the themes and titles, brought together the team of people, and been that support person for creating that project. But all the rest are ones that I was one of the authors in somebody else's books. And so over the last few years now, I've worked with 12 different publishing groups, actually, and we're over 12 now. And so really that's given me a lot of exposure to those different communities, how different people do different parts of the whole process. And so it's really opened doors, like I said, that I had never even noticed before. And then speaking opportunities and other things within other communities. And here too, oh, there it is. The title wasn't showing up. Kind of looking now at the differences between a solo book versus having a multi-author book. So anthology, collaboration, compilation book. There's so many different words, but the whole multi-author system where generally each chapter is written by a different person and then brought together as a collection and published that way. So kind of looking at these differences if you're going to put out your own solo book or if you're going to participate in a multi-author book. And just some of the really, quick things that really differentiate the two. If obviously the time required is massively different. So if you're looking at creating your own book from scratch, where you are now having to design the whole book, figure out what your messages are, create all that content. I'd say, most books I would put around close to 200 pages is what I consider a good size book. Anything smaller than that almost seems more like a brochure. So really, if you're looking at doing 200 pages of your own content, there's a lot of time required there. The other side of that is the investment involved. So if you're doing your own solo book, you're the only one paying, whether it's the editing, the publishing, the marketing, all those different things. So one of the reasons why I do love the multi-author system is that it really does allow you to get published with a fraction of the time and investment. One of the other things as well is the amount of content you have available. For a lot of people who are relatively new as an entrepreneur or building their thought leadership, quite often you don't have masses and masses of content to bring together. So that's also an aspect of, do I have enough good content to create a whole book? And if not, a multi-author book might be a good option to get started. So this is part of the stages of your business as well. And if you guys have any questions going along the way, then just pop in and let me know. And one of the other things that I love about as a published author, based on the theme, the title of your own book, it really does personalize the visibility that you're creating, because now you've got a physical piece of content that you can share with people who they really do get a feel for who you are and what you're about. These 3 books here were the first 3 books that I did. And you can almost see just by looking at the titles and the covers what I'm about and the feeling of, what we're generating with these books. Yeah, and I've got through all of that very quickly. So as I was mentioning, so if you are looking at becoming a published author and amplifying your impact and your influence, then you can always jump into one of these collaborative books that I always have on the go. And one of the new programs I'm just creating as well, I've called it Impact and Visibility Accelerator. So that's one that we'll be working together as a group, learning different strategies around visibility, looking at options for being a published author, and bringing that all together in a way that's really kind of working for to create that visibility and build your impact as well. And so yes, I got through that very quickly. So any questions, or what's been your experience in the books that you have published? And
What's your next topic?
I always have a few different ones on the go. So right now, one of them is called Inspired Metamorphosis. So that will include 20 women from around the world, sharing how we have completely changed our life to generally follow our passion or to navigate different challenges in life. And then I've got another one that's focused on entrepreneurs. I've called that From Inspiration to Success, the Entrepreneurial Journey. So those are a couple of the ones on the go. My original career was in medical genetics, and so I always have a spot in my heart for women in science and tech. So I also have a series of books specifically for them. So one of my current ones is called Women in STEAM, a Global Movement. So those are kind of the three main ones that I'm bringing people into right now.
And what's involved in, so are you seeking people to be contributing their stories?
Yes. Yeah. So
Okay.
those are the ones that I've got spots open for women to jump into. And the entrepreneur book, I'm also going to make that open for men as well. Most of my projects are women focused, but I figured that theme is one that guys have a story to share as well.
Mm-hmm. I'm just thinking, I'm thinking of a woman I know in Australia. She would be a great contributor for your STEAM book, but also like I feel like I would have a story to tell for the metamorphosis one that you talked about, and maybe even my business partner Serena, because she was a pharmacist. I mean, she still has her pharmacy, but she doesn't practice anymore because of multiple traumatic brain injuries, and she was
Oh
like in a
no.
coma and almost like she's almost died 3 times in her life at 11, 20, 25, and 39. And so I feel like we both could
Yeah,
contribute
that's perfect.
individually.
And of course, it's always fun to do these kind of things with friends and coworkers, and be able to go through this whole celebration and adventure together. So no, let's definitely chat about that. And Amanda, what's been your experience so far doing the multi-author books? Have you been finding it's obviously you're in the process of 2 of them right now? So
Yeah, I've submitted my chapters to those 2, and that part was easy. So we're in the stages of, I think we have a meeting next week to start like the promotional campaign. So that will be new for me,
right.
doing all that stuff to get it to bestseller status and all that stuff. So that'll be a learning experience for sure.
Perfect.
The writing, that's good. I got
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
But I actually had another meeting this morning. I'm working with Aquilius they're a medical tech venture capital fund. So they have a ton of women businesses that are doing amazing things with medical wearable technology or other projects that I bet I could get some really inspiring STEAM stories for you.
Wow. Yeah, that sounds like an amazing group.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. And yes, you bring up a good kind of next thing around the whole marketing. One of the things, I guess one of the pieces that I think used to be in that slideshow, I'm not sure where it disappeared to, but was comparing traditional publishers versus do-it-yourself publishing or hybrid publishing. The system that I use, I would put into the hybrid category, in that you're not doing it yourself, but it's not the big wig traditional publishers, but it's a professional group of people who are experts in those areas of publishing, editing, marketing, creating a professional product. And so basically with our system, we are able to you write your chapter with coaching and support, and then we have the professional editor that you go through, and it's always up to you to decide when the chapter is finished. So if, back and forth with the professional editor, and then it's your voice that needs to come out in these books. And I know I've come across some other projects where they basically rewrite your chapter with a common voice for some continuity in the book. And personally, I don't like that. I like that every chapter represents the person who wrote that chapter. And I love that. And I know a lot of people have the idea that they need to stick with the traditional publishing model where you have your book and you have to go pitch it to all these big guys, and then they decide what they want, and then they decide what your title is going to be. They decide what your book's really going to look like. And in most cases too, they then also take ownership of your copy. So you have lost control and use of your own work. And one part that people often misunderstand as well is the marketing side. They think, well, if I get picked up by these big guys, they'll look after all of that and make it a success. Whereas in most cases, the reality is they don't. And it really is on you to market your book to make it a success. And quite often, too, they won't, even no matter how great your book is, they probably won't pick you up unless your social media and community is like, I've heard roughly 5,000.
Yeah.
And because, again, they're not doing a lot of the marketing, they're riding your community to market the book.
For them.
So unless you've got a massive following, you probably wouldn't get picked up by the big guys anyways. And so that's one of the reasons I love the hybrid model, because it is being done professionally, but you're maintaining ownership of your work. You're maintaining control of what is being released with your name attached to it. So that is one of my favorite things as well. And Lisa, you were mentioning that you've got a series of sci-fi books. Is that what you were saying?
The first one is up there, and it's not quite a book, so to speak. It's more of a book script. It's written in a screenplay format for Hollywood, but it has a book cover to it. I didn't do anything with it. I didn't promote it. I didn't do anything because it's still a work in progress. I want to promote more the merchandise and the movie project associated with it. So it's a different animal because I'm weird.
Okay, so you got merchandise and everything. That's cool. I like that. And one thing I always remind people too, we always do our launch through Amazon, mainly because it's the simplest and it's global and pretty much every country. With the Leadership Global community, we just released a book called Leadership Unveiled. And with that book, we had women from many different corners of the world. And we were able to hit #1 bestseller in US, Canada, Sweden, Netherlands, and where was the other one? UK, I think it was, Australia. And so it's really fun. I love that part of it, to be able to have this global community of people all buying in their own areas, and that allows you to hit this international #1 bestseller status. And so Amazon is really one of the easiest ways. Of course, the problem with Amazon is that they do take a chunk of any kind of revenue, which, okay, you weigh the pros and cons of making it easy for people versus not much comes out the other end. And that's why with most of my books, what we do is we align with a nonprofit group that's, connected with the theme of the book. And then we just take all of the Amazon proceeds and donate it to one place. And I just find that creates a bit more impact than trying to split, a few $100s between 20 people
20
from
ways.
around the world. That can become kind of complicated. And so that's a few of the different experiences that I've had. And Liz, what's been your experience so far? You were saying that you've helped with editing with a book, and you're working on your own book.
Yeah, oh, well, it's funny because I wrote a book. Have you heard of novel, what's it called? NaNoWriMo. Have you heard of
Yeah.
NaNoWriMo? It's National Novel Writers Month. So back in 2009, I wrote a novel in 50,000 plus words in a month. And
Wow.
then didn't really edit it very well, and then workshopped it out to some people, and the feedback, I wasn't happy with the feedback I got, so I just kind of shelved it, just it's been sitting in a drawer. But then I was a book promotion agent for a friend of mine who wrote a children's book,
Oh, cool.
and I mean, incredibly hard to get a book sold. Like you said, with the publishers, like they don't necessarily have your back. And then working with Amazon, I don't know if it's better now, but I mean, just so frustrating. And then my business partner, Serena, she had a whole lot of books, and a lot, meaning like a, a batch of books before I took a look, before I read her book. And again, like so much trouble getting it out there with Amazon, and they take such a chunk of the pie, piece of the pie, that you just feel like your soul's coming out of your body. um, and then learning the process of the fact that like oftentimes books are a calling card, a business card, a prize to give away at a speaking event, and they're not really the way to make money necessarily
Yes.
anymore.
Yes.
So I guess all of those encompassed. Also, I think it's a very cathartic process to write your story. And I think that this idea of gathering a bunch of different women's or people's stories is a great format, because then you get that cathartic experience, but then you're not in it alone. So,
yeah, yes.
right.
And that's actually a big part that I find people are surprised by. They're not expecting that emotional side of writing their story, putting it on paper, and even that part of releasing it out into the world. There's a whole emotional end of that. But you also brought up another point around the traditional publishing that I'd kind of forgot to mention, that a lot of what they also do is you hear people getting an advance for writing their book. And really that is what it is. It's based on the sales of your book. So if your book doesn't sell enough to cover that cost, you have to pay them back in most cases.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a catch there. And also a lot of them, it's required that you purchase a certain number of your own book. So they might not have charged you for creating the book in the first place, but now you have to go buy 1,000 copies of your own book. And so there's a cost right there. And then, like you're saying too, what do you do with hundreds of copies of your own book? So many people have a whole garage full of books. And even with some of the earlier projects that I was in, that were other people's projects, quite often you'd get like 10 copies of the book. But now what do you do with all of those? And so I find in general, it's easiest, again, just to go through Amazon. People can buy where they are. And it also became a challenge with our books, with that idea of distributing books when we had an international community, because getting books to other countries from North America isn't always as easy as it seems like it should be. And even with the women that we had in Germany, they've got so many fees and taxes on importing anything, even a gift. They told us, do not send us anything, because it costs us more to receive that gift than it would for us to just go buy it ourselves. And we are having some issues with the Amazon system in Africa, and our women down in South Africa, we still haven't been able to get Amazon to cooperate and make things available. So that's been a little bit of a challenge, but it definitely is great to go through this process together as a group, and especially just getting yourself started. They say that about 92% of people have it on their bucket list that they want to become a published author, but only maybe 3 to 5% of people ever do. And I think you've had a couple of examples right here of books that got written or started and just never got published or never got beyond that stage. And so it definitely being, working on a project together, having a group of people creating this book as a team definitely helps you get that ball rolling, get that incentive. And I've noticed quite often, I think that imposter syndrome is a huge part of people who start books but never publish them, because you get to this point and you start thinking to yourself, well, does anyone really care what I've written? Does anyone really want to see my book? And I would say that is probably the main thing that actually stops people from moving forward with publishing their book. So again, when you're doing this together as a team, you don't have to worry about that so much because you're being supported through writing your chapter, through getting the publishing done. So it's almost like you're riding the wave of the group instead of having to stand on your own. And I know I've had several women from my groups that have then gone on to do their own solo book or have gone back and published the book they'd already written before that's been sitting on their shelf the whole time. So that's definitely helped. And one thing I remind people too, quite often people will publish a book and it's available on Amazon, but they don't do any of the marketing, or it just didn't go the way they thought it would, and they just let it kind of disappear. And I always remind people it's never too late to relaunch your book. Assuming that the material is not old and not relevant anymore. If it's an actual book that might become obsolete. But generally speaking, Amazon bestseller systems are based on activity. And so anytime you can reignite the activity around your book, you can get it onto the bestseller list, even if it was launched 10 years ago. So that's something to keep in mind too. If you've got a book that's been sitting around, never got launched properly, it's not too late. But
Well, and I do have that feedback I can integrate into it when I'm ready. Okay, sounds good.
sounds perfect.
I'm gonna email the link to your STEAM program to my friend, and she's actually in Australia. Oh,
That'd be cool. Yeah, all of my
anyway,
STEM
yeah,
books
and
so
thank you for your
far.
presentation.
We've had women in Australia in all of those books so far. So they're a fun bunch of ladies. So definitely send them my way. And yes, I will definitely. Yes, let me just put in the chat here my website so you can connect with me if you haven't already. And I'll also put in my LinkedIn here so you got them both. And so definitely let's jump on a call. There's buttons on my website to book a chat and get together and just kind of look at what you're up to, what I can help with. And of course, because I've been involved in a lot of these different parts, different books and different groups and different parts of the industry, that I do have a lot of contacts, whether they're editors, publishers, agents, all those kind of things. So definitely let's jump on a call and have a chat about what your goals are as an author, and let's make it happen. I think for all of us, like I was mentioning, as an entrepreneur, it really is required. Oh, Lisa,
I
question?
have a question. So I can't remember, it was like 2 years ago, were you involved in the book series Women Gone Wild with She Talks, or did you join like more recently?
Yeah, no, I wasn't in that one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I was in that event in Huntington Beach, but I can't put the face with the name, so I don't remember. So you joined fairly recently, right?
With She Talks? Yes, I joined She Talks. I think it was back in June.
So June last year.
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay. But I think the model would be the same for someone who want to co-author a book that needs to hit best-selling status. If you do it with you through Cheat Talks, it's the same model. It's like collective authorship and book launch events, stuff like that, correct?
Yes, yes. So we do have a She Talks anthology right now that we're just starting to bring people into, and that one where we've used the Rise Up theme that the conference was also based on. So for people who are She Talks community members, then you're welcome to join that one as well.
Okay. So you have on one side you have your own series, and on the other you work with She Talk. So you have like you're wearing two different hats.
I would say in a way it's really the same hat, because I am creating and curating, whether it's my own projects or within a community, because that is another way that I work my model, is that I will go into a community just like the one that I just did with Leadership Global, where all of the authors came from Leadership Global. We created the book that was branded and labeled around the organization. So it becomes a great way of promoting the group as well. And so same with the She Talks book that's coming up, that will be branded around She Talks. It will be filled with women from the She Talks community. And so it will be, both a marketing piece for the organization, but also for the women who are in it.
Okay, got you. Okay.
Perfect. Well, thank you all for joining us. It was great to have you here, and I would definitely love to have a chat with all of you.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thanks, Liz and Lisa. We'll talk to you again soon.
Take care. Thanks.
Bye.